I thought my beach house was my sanctuary, my escape from the chaos of life. But when I pull into the driveway and see strangers setting up a wedding, I realize the ones I trusted most have crossed every line. Family, lies, and betrayal collide, and I must fight to reclaim not just my home, but my life. My name is Amara Steele, and if anyone had told me a year ago that my life would unravel into a maze of betrayal, secrets, and forbidden desires, I would have laughed in their face. I wasn't naive, far from it. Life had taught me to expect storms. But nothing prepared me for the hurricane that was about to tear through everything I thought I knew. It started on a night when the city outside my window glowed with rain-slick streets and restless neon lights. I sat in my apartment, staring at the flickering lamp that refused to stay alive, much like my hope for peace. My phone buzzed on the table, shattering the silence. The message was short, cold, almost surgical. Meet me at the old warehouse by the river. Midnight. Come alone. No name. No details. Just that. I should have ignored it. Any rational person would. But my chest tightened as though invisible hands were dragging me towards something inevitable. Deep down, I knew this wasn't random. This was connected to everything I had been running from, the shadows I never dared to name. Pulling on my black coat, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. My eyes looked sharper than I remembered, my lips pressed thin with an unspoken promise. Whatever waited for me in that warehouse, I was ready. The streets were empty when I drove, the hum of my car engine competing with the thunder rolling far above. Every turn of the wheel tightened the knot in my stomach. My thoughts weren't on the road. They were on the message, on the person who sent it, and on the memories I buried too deep. By the time I reached the warehouse, midnight had swallowed the sky. The building loomed like a skeleton against the river's shimmer, its broken windows staring at me like hollow eyes. I killed the engine, stepped out, and pulled my coat tighter around me. Inside, the air smelled of rust and forgotten time. My footsteps echoed against the concrete as I walked deeper into the shadows. That's when I saw him. Damien Cross. The last man I ever wanted to see again. His figure leaned against a steel beam, half his face cloaked in shadow, the other illuminated by a flickering overhead bulb. The smirk curling his lips was the same one that once made my knees weak, but tonight it made my blood boil. Amara Steele, he drawled, his voice a slow burn that slid over my skin. Still as fearless as ever. Fearless? He had no idea. My hands clenched at my sides as I took a step closer. Why am I here, Damien? What do you want? His eyes glinted, dark and unreadable. Answers. And maybe revenge. The word hung in the air like smoke, thick and dangerous. And in that moment, as thunder cracked outside and the river whispered secrets to the night, I realized something I hadn't dared to admit until now. Whatever game Damien was playing, I was already trapped in it. I studied Damien for a moment, my instincts screaming at me to turn and run, but my feet refused. There was a rhythm to him, a dangerous familiarity, like a storm I had survived once but could never forget. Answers, I said cautiously. You could have sent a message. You didn't need to lure me here. He chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. Where's the fun in that? He pushed himself off the beam, his movements fluid, calculated. You've been running, Amara, avoiding the truth. But some things you can't outrun forever. I gritted my teeth. I don't owe you anything. And if this is about the past, believe me, it's dead. Finished. His eyes narrowed, catching the dim light in a way that made them glint like polished onyx. Is it? He asked, stepping closer. His presence was suffocating, and yet I couldn't look away. You think you can walk away from everything we shared, everything you took from me? I swallowed hard. Memories surged unbidden. Late nights spent unraveling secrets together, whispered promises that felt real, the betrayal that had shattered us both. I had spent years building walls around my heart, telling myself I was stronger without him, stronger without trust. But standing here, I felt that old pulse of danger and desire entwined, a rope tightening around my chest. I don't know what you think I took, I whispered, my voice trembling, though I hated that it did. If this is about the Steel Corporation files or the information about your schemes, I returned everything. Damien smirked again, shaking his head. You returned paper, Amara. Not trust. Not loyalty. And certainly not your conscience. I felt my pulse quicken. His words weren't just accusations, they were keys, unlocking doubts I didn't know I still carried. And suddenly, the warehouse didn't feel empty. The shadows seemed to stretch toward me, wrapping me in their cold embrace. Why now? I asked. Why after all this time? He tilted his head, a dangerous playfulness in his gaze. Because timing is everything. And because someone's been poking around your perfect little life, trying to find cracks in your armor. You may think you've moved on, Amara, but the past has a way of coming back, whether you're ready or not. I took a careful step back, my coat brushing against the damp concrete floor. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to flee, to escape, yet my curiosity anchored me in place. Who? I demanded. Who's trying to what? What do you mean? Damien's lips curved into that maddening smirk again. Someone who knows you better than you think. Someone who knows everything you've tried to protect. The words sent a cold shiver down my spine. Everything I've tried to protect? I glanced around the warehouse, half expecting shadows to move, to reveal some hidden observer. But it was just Damien. For now. Look, I don't have time for games, I said sharply. If you're here to threaten me, fine. Say it. But leave the cryptic warnings for your own amusement. He leaned closer, his voice a whisper now, dangerous and intimate. I'm not here to threaten you, Amara. I'm here to warn you. There are forces in play that you don't even understand. People who think they can control you, your family, even your life. And they're closer than you think. A surge of fear and excitement raced through me. My life had been meticulously structured. My apartment, my routines, my work at the coastal Florida bank. Everything was carefully mapped, controlled. And now, Damien Cross had shown up to remind me that control was an illusion. I don't need your warnings, I said, though my voice lacked conviction. I can handle myself. He studied me for a long moment, the silence stretching until it was almost unbearable. Then he finally nodded. Maybe you can. But even you, Amara Steele, have limits. And someone's testing yours. Be careful, because when the pieces start falling, they won't stop until they break everything you've built. And with that, he turned, vanishing into the shadows of the warehouse, as if he had never been there at all. I stood frozen for several minutes, trying to collect myself. My heart raced, my hands trembled. The adrenaline mixed with a surge of curiosity I hated to admit. Who was testing me? Why now? And why did Damien's words feel like both a warning and a promise? As I walked back to my car, the rain had started again, pattering softly on the asphalt. The city lights reflected on the wet streets, fragmented and distorted, much like my thoughts. I knew that my life was about to change. Not slowly, not gently, but in a way that would challenge everything I thought I knew about loyalty, trust, and love. And deep down, a small, forbidden part of me wondered, am I ready for it? When I pulled into the curved driveway of my beach house later that Friday afternoon, the first thing that hit me was the sound. Not the waves, not the wind, but voices, too many voices. My pulse quickened as my eyes scanned the scene. 4 unfamiliar cars were parked haphazardly, as if they belonged to invaders staking claim. My own Subaru looked ridiculously out of place behind them. Something was wrong. I stepped out, the salty air brushing against my skin, and froze. Through the open backyard gate, I could see a massive wedding arch gleaming in the sun, white folding chairs arranged in meticulous rows, and a giant tent looming in the far corner of my property. People, strangers, were bustling about, hanging twinkling lights and arranging flowers on my porch. And at the center of it all, clipboard in hand, was my sister, Selena, though I now wanted to call her enemy in disguise. Amara. Perfect timing, she called, not noticing me at first. Her voice carried that practiced authority she'd perfected since childhood. We need your input on the seating chart. I suppressed a shiver. Amara, we want everything perfect for the first dance. Come on over. I remained rooted to the garden stones, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My carefully curated sanctuary, my weekend retreat, my reward for years of long hours and sacrifices, had been hijacked. Selena, I managed finally, my voice tight. What is all this? Her eyes flickered briefly with what looked like guilt, but she quickly replaced it with a radiant, practiced smile. Oh, didn't Mom tell you? Thomas and I are finalizing the wedding. The ceremony's next Saturday. And, of course, your beautiful house is perfect for the celebration. My stomach dropped. Thomas, her boyfriend of 8 months. Engagement? Wedding? My house. None of it had been mentioned to me. A woman in a sleek blazer approached, hand extended. You must be the generous sister I've heard so much about, she said, her tone warm, practiced. I'm Vanessa, the wedding planner. Your property is absolutely perfect for what Selena and Thomas envisioned. Generous sister? My mind reeled. My house wasn't a donation, it was mine. Every brick, every nail, every late-night emergency repair had been paid for with my hard-earned money. I picked up an envelope from a nearby table, sliding out the embossed invitation. Joyfully invite you to celebrate their marriage at the Steel Beach House. My eyes blurred as memories of 5 years ago, of finally buying this house, of saving every dollar, of imagining quiet weekends filled with books, coffee, and the ocean breeze, flooded my mind. Since then, the erosion had been gradual. Family members appearing unannounced. Furniture rearranged. Belongings borrowed and never returned. My gentle reminders were brushed off with, "We're family. No need for formalities." Vanessa's voice cut through my thoughts. Selena mentioned you were thrilled to host. We've been planning this for months. Months. Without even a conversation with me. Something inside me shifted. For years, I had been the reasonable one, the responsible one, the peacemaker. And this brazen invasion was payback. Anger surged, but it was tempered by a strange, eerie calm. Excuse me, I said quietly, turning toward my car. Selena called after me. Amara, where are you going? We need your help. I slid into the driver's seat, clutching the keys as if they were a lifeline. The word obligations echoed in my mind. My obligations, always my obligations, never theirs. I drove aimlessly for an hour, the scene of my violated sanctuary replaying in my mind like a horror film I couldn't pause. At my apartment, I dropped my purse, sank onto the sofa, and opened my laptop. Selena Steele's wedding. The search revealed a digital trail I couldn't ignore. Pinterest boards, Instagram posts, and countless planning threads, all created without me, all assuming my silent consent. My phone buzzed, a message from Thomas. Amara, I'm sorry. I told Selena we should have asked you properly. This wasn't my idea. I swallowed, unsure whether to respond.
My phone rang again, Mom.
Hello? I answered, voice tight. Where is your sense of boundaries, Amara? She asked. I scrolled through old messages between my parents, reading the cold logic they'd applied. Rain doesn't mind. She never uses the house anyway. Easier to ask forgiveness than permission. The realization hit me fully. My family had been planning this behind my back for months, assuming I'd comply silently. I needed a plan. I dug deeper. A family group chat I had never been added to contained dozens of messages, coordinating wedding details at my house. My deed, mortgage statements, utility bills, all under my name. Every repair, every payment, every ounce of effort was mine. Respect had been absent. Marlene, my best friend, called. Amara, you're not crazy for being upset. This is outrageous. What are you going to do? I didn't have an answer yet. But for the first time, I knew one thing. I was done being a doormat. The next morning, I woke with a strange clarity. The anger from yesterday had settled into something sharper, colder, determination. This was my house, my sanctuary, and no one, not my sister, not my parents, would disrespect that again. I spent the morning compiling everything, mortgage statements, utility bills, receipts for repairs, even photos from past unauthorized gatherings. Every instance of a boundary crossed was documented, dated, and cataloged. This wasn't just about a wedding anymore. This was about respect. By mid-afternoon, I was at the hardware store purchasing new locks and security cameras. The locksmith arrived within the hour, and I watched as he changed the deadbolts on every door, installing discrete cameras that would stream directly to my phone. Finally, my property felt secure, not just in law, but in reality. I drafted an email to my family, concise and firm. Subject: Beach House Access. Effective immediately. Anyone wishing to visit my property at 219 Pelican Way must contact me directly for permission. All previous keys are to be returned. Access without authorization is strictly prohibited. I hit send and immediately muted my phone. Calls and messages came pouring in: Mom, Dad, Selena, even aunts and cousins, but I didn't answer. I wasn't negotiating. I was asserting boundaries. Later that evening, I returned to the beach house under the pretense of inspecting the property. From across the street, I watched as my family and Selena's wedding planner scurried about. I could see the confusion ripple across their faces when 3 vans with a tour company logo pulled into my driveway. 7 uniformed employees exited, clipboards in hand. The tour manager approached Selena, holding a thick contract. My phone buzzed with a message: contract presented as instructed. Exclusive use confirmed. Chaos unfolded. Guests arrived early, only to be redirected. My parents frantically tried to explain, but the reality was unavoidable. My house was legally unavailable for Selena's wedding. The looks on their faces, shock, disbelief, and a flicker of guilt, were almost satisfying. Selena called, fury barely contained. Amara, what did you do? You can't let them take my wedding. I held my phone steady. Selena, this is my house. You knew about it, everyone knew. Yet no one asked. Assumptions don't override my property rights. This is what happens when boundaries are ignored. Her voice cracked. Call them off. The house isn't available. I hung up, letting the silence speak for me. Over the next few days, messages continued, but I ignored them. Social media posts from family shifted from excitement to confusion. Even Thomas reached out privately, finally acknowledging the disrespect. I always felt uncomfortable using your house without asking. Thank you for standing your ground. The final confrontation came unexpectedly. My parents appeared at my apartment, stiff and indignant. Mother's voice trembled between anger and panic. Amara Steele, how could you humiliate Selena like this? Her wedding is ruined. I gestured calmly toward the living room.
Sit.
Let me show you. I opened the folder I had prepared, laying out photographs, receipts, and documentation of every boundary crossed over the last 5 years. Muddy footprints, cigarette burns, missing furniture, unauthorized parties, every detail cataloged. The silence was deafening. My mother's eyes flicked over the evidence, guilt beginning to replace indignation. Father shifted uneasily, finally muttering, "We didn't think. We didn't intend. Intent doesn't erase impact." These are my terms, I said firmly. No one enters without permission. All keys returned. Boundaries respected, or there will be consequences. After a long pause, my parents handed over their keys. A subtle shift had occurred. Respect finally had been acknowledged. As they left, I sank onto my sofa, a strange lightness settling over me. For the first time in years, I felt in control of my home, my life, my peace. Standing on the porch the next morning, watching the ocean shimmer, I realized something important. I hadn't lost anything. I had claimed what was mine. Boundaries had been enforced, and for the first time, I felt truly free. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and I felt a strange thrill. This was just the beginning. There would be more challenges. Selena would not forgive easily, but I was ready. For the first time, the house was mine, and I was Amara Steele, resolute, calm, and unyielding. The morning after my parents left, the apartment felt almost foreign in its quiet. No phones buzzing incessantly, no urgent knocks at the door, no sense of obligation pressing against my chest. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the warmth seep in, savoring a silence I hadn't known for years. For the first time, I felt in charge, not just of my home, but of myself. Yet the peace was fragile. My phone buzzed once, twice, a notification from Marlene. Check your emails. Something's happening at the beach house. I frowned, setting my mug down. Opening my laptop, I found dozens of messages from the tour company's staff confirming the property inspection and preparations. Then came the social media alerts. Photos from family friends at my beach house, confused guests, a half-set wedding, Selena in tears. Even from this distance, I could sense the chaos radiating across my family. I tried not to smile. No, not smile. This wasn't victory yet. It was just the beginning of rebalancing a lifetime of taken-for-granted boundaries. By late morning, the first real confrontation arrived. My mother's call flashed across the screen, name in bold. I hesitated for only a second before answering. Amara, we need to talk. Now, she said, voice sharp, brittle with stress. I leaned back in my chair, letting her words hit, but not control me. We can talk at the Bayside Cafe like yesterday. 5:30. You're being unreasonable, she snapped. Selena's wedding. It's ruined. Do you have any idea what this means? I let the silence stretch before replying, calm, firm. I understand the inconvenience, but I also understand my rights. My house. My rules. No one asked permission and no one should assume. This isn't about inconvenience. This is about respect. There was a long pause on the other end. I imagine her taking a breath, trying to steady herself. You're breaking the family apart. I tilted my head, letting her frustration hang in the air.
No, Mom.
I'm setting boundaries. That's different from breaking a family. If respect is the foundation, then yes, something had to change. By afternoon, I drove to the beach house to check the cameras I had installed the day before. From the comfort of my car across the street, I could see my family pacing. Selena's hands flew through the air as she argued with the wedding planner, her voice rising and falling like a storm. Dad was shuffling guests toward cars, mumbling explanations I knew no one would accept. And there, finally, I felt it, the power of standing firm. Not for revenge, not for punishment, but for self-respect. Every move I'd made, the locks, the cameras, the documentation, the rental contract, was calculated, deliberate. Every step reinforced the boundaries I'd spent years longing for. My phone buzzed again. It was Thomas. Amara, I see now. You were right. I tried to speak up before, but I didn't have the courage. Thank you for protecting what's yours. I exhaled slowly, letting his words sink in. Even allies were few, but at least some understood. By evening, I returned to my apartment, the sun casting golden streaks across the skyline. I sank onto my sofa, letting the day's events replay in my mind. I wasn't done. I reminded myself. There would be more discussions, more confrontations. Selena would come knocking sooner or later. My parents might try another approach. But I was ready. My heart, steadied by control and boundaries, refused to waver. For the first time in years, I felt unshakable. And yet, somewhere beneath the satisfaction, a tiny spark of apprehension whispered. The next moves my family would make, desperate, emotional, unpredictable, were unknown. And in the uncertainty, the suspense thrummed like the ocean beyond my window. The next morning, my phone buzzed relentlessly, texts, calls, even a few emails. I ignored them all, letting the silence of my apartment guard me. I had anticipated Selena's reaction. She was desperate, frantic, convinced that my refusal to yield would destroy everything she'd planned. By mid-morning, I could no longer ignore a text from her. Amara, you're being cruel. This isn't just about the house. It's about family.
Call me.
I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Call her?
No.
Not yet. I had to see the full scope first. I opened my laptop and checked the security feed from my beach house. Through the cameras, I could see her arriving with a small group of friends, pale, nervous faces trailing her. She approached the gate, her hands shaking slightly as she attempted to open it, only to find the new locks impassable. A flicker of satisfaction tugged at me, but I swallowed it immediately. This wasn't about satisfaction. It was about principle, respect, boundaries. Selena's voice rose as she turned to her friends, gesturing wildly. I imagined the panic and confusion spreading through their small circle. And then it hit me, my plan was working. Not by confrontation, but by forcing them to face the reality of their assumptions. By noon, my mother called again. Amara, what are you doing? You've humiliated her. She can't even get into her own wedding venue. I tilted my head, listening calm. Mom, she can still have her wedding. Just not in my house. There are countless venues nearby. She can still have her day, just not at my expense. Her sigh carried frustration and incredulity. Amara, it's not just the venue. It's tradition. It's family. It's the ocean, the house, You promised. You promised? I repeated, voice steady. No one promised her anything. And I never promised anyone that my property was theirs to use. The line went silent for a moment, the sound of disbelief almost palpable. Then she spoke again, quieter this time. I don't know how to fix this. Neither did I, not yet. But that wasn't my problem. The responsibility had shifted. They had crossed the line for years. Now, they would feel the consequences. Late afternoon, a knock on my apartment door broke my reverie. I opened it to find Marlene, holding a bag of my favorite pastries. I came to make sure you didn't cave, she said, smiling knowingly. I let her in, grateful for her presence. We sat together on the sofa, sipping coffee and talking quietly. She reminded me why I had chosen this path, not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. Every word she spoke strengthened the resolve I already had. By evening, a flurry of social media posts confirmed the ripple effect. Friends and distant relatives expressed confusion at the sudden change of venue. Comments ranged from bewilderment to cautious admiration. Standing your ground takes courage, one reads. Finally, someone said no, wrote another. I felt a strange satisfaction, but I remained guarded. This wasn't over. Selena would not let it go so easily. And my parents, they were unpredictable, loyal to the family narrative rather than fairness. Later that night, my phone vibrated again. Thomas. Amara, I hope you know you did the right thing. I tried to intervene, but she wouldn't listen. You protected your home, your boundaries, and yourself. I typed a quick reply. Thank you. That means a lot. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair, staring out at the city lights. For the first time, I understood what freedom felt like. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of control, the knowledge that I would no longer allow others to decide my life for me. And yet, beneath that calm, a small seed of apprehension remained. Selena's next move was unpredictable, and my parents were still reeling. The suspense of what was coming, the thrill and fear of standing firm against the people who had once dictated my life, settled around me like a dense fog. Tomorrow would bring more challenges. Perhaps confrontation. Perhaps compromise. But whatever happened, I would meet it as Amara Steele, steady, unyielding, and in full control of my life and my home. The morning air felt heavy as I sipped my coffee on the balcony, watching the sun glint across the water. My phone buzzed incessantly, but I ignored it. Calls from Selena, Mom, Dad, even a text from Serena's wedding planner. None would get an immediate response. Today, I would observe, not react. By late morning, the security cameras pinged with motion alerts. I leaned forward, scanning the feeds. Selena had arrived at my beach house again, this time with more friends and a few relatives in tow. Their expressions were a mix of confusion and indignation, as if they had expected automatic access. My locks and the signs I'd posted were ignored by no one, and that was exactly the point. I watched Selena pull out her phone, furiously texting someone I couldn't see. Her posture screamed panic. Her friends exchanged worried glances. One of them tapped her shoulder, whispering something, and she gestured wildly, voice rising in anger. Even from my apartment, I could almost hear her tone, sharp and desperate. Then my phone buzzed.
It was Thomas again.
Amara, please don't engage. She's spiraling. She's trying to draw you into a fight. Just let the tour company handle the house. They're professional. I smiled slightly.
Finally, an ally.
My thumb hovered over a reply.
Thank you.
That's exactly what I'm doing. By afternoon, social media had turned into a chaotic battleground. Friends and extended family posted stories and photos of Selena standing outside my locked gate, bewildered. Comments ranged from mild astonishment to veiled criticism. Why didn't she ask? Boundaries matter, finally. A new text arrived from Mom, voice trembling in typed words. Amara, this is cruel. You're humiliating her in front of everyone. Please reconsider. I leaned back, considering my reply. Mom, my house is not a family convenience. Everyone assumed it was. That assumption is what I'm correcting. I paused, fingers hovering over send, then pressed. She can have her wedding. Just not here. By early evening, the tour company staff arrived at my property, moving with calm efficiency. Chairs were set in neat rows facing the water, informational placards were placed along the paths, and staff coordinated the day's setup with professionalism. Through my binoculars, I could see Selena's frustration reach a peak, her plans unraveling in real time, right before her eyes. The unexpected thrill of watching her scramble brought a flicker of satisfaction. Not malicious, but clear validation. The house was mine. My boundaries mattered. My years of silent acquiescence were over. Mom's calls persisted, desperate, pleading. Dad's texts alternated between attempts at reason and veiled threats of exclusion. I ignored them all. Today, they would learn that my patience had limits. Around sunset, the first guests for the tour group began arriving. Luxury vehicles pulled into the driveway. Professionally dressed guests carried cameras and notebooks. From my vantage point, I could see confusion ripple through Selena's entourage. Whispers spread as the staff courteously explained the booking, a corporate retreat, exclusive use for the weekend, fully contracted and legally binding. Selena's hands shook as she waved her arms, pleading with the manager, but the woman's expression remained polite and immovable. Every gesture, every word, underscored the reality. My authority over my property was absolute. Later that night, I sat in my apartment, letting the event settle. My phone buzzed again, this time Marlene. Are you okay? You're holding the line beautifully. They'll adapt, eventually. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes. The adrenaline of the day began to fade, replaced by a deep, satisfying calm. I had faced the storm and emerged unshaken. My house, my rules, my life. And yet, beneath that calm, a subtle tension lingered. Selena wouldn't disappear quietly. My parents wouldn't give up so easily. The days ahead promised confrontation, manipulation, perhaps even guilt trips and emotional attacks. But for the first time in years, I felt prepared. Prepared to defend what was mine. Prepared to insist on respect. Prepared to finally live for myself, rather than for everyone else's expectations. The next morning, the beach was quiet, only the faint whisper of waves brushing the sand. I sat on my porch swing, mug of coffee in hand, watching the golden light stretch across the water. My phone remained silent, the calm before the inevitable storm. Today, I would finalize what I had fought so hard to establish, my boundaries, my rules, my space. The tour company staff had arrived early, preparing for the first official day of their corporate retreat. I lingered on the balcony, binoculars in hand, observing the meticulous setup. Every chair, every placard, every arrangement was exactly as I intended. Then I saw them, Mom, Dad, and Selena, approaching the property from across the street. Their expressions were unreadable from this distance, but I could sense the tension radiating from them even from here. My pulse quickened, not from fear, but anticipation. I was ready. Selena stormed toward the gate, her heels clicking against the pavement. She waved her phone in the air, calling someone, probably a wedding planner or one of her friends. Her voice carried across the quiet street, sharp and frantic. Mom followed, her posture rigid, while Dad lagged, attempting to mediate in his usual calm, reasoning tone. I stepped outside, locking eyes with Mom. "Good morning," I said evenly. "I see you've come to visit." Mom's face tightened. "Amara, you can't do this. You're humiliating your sister. Her wedding." "My house," I interrupted, voice calm but firm. "Not her wedding venue. The contract is legally binding. The house is reserved for the corporate retreat this weekend. You were all informed weeks ago." Selena's hands flew into the air. "This is insane. You're ruining everything. You can't." I held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "I can and I did. Every boundary I set has been ignored for years. Not anymore. My house, my rules. No one enters without permission. No one uses it for events without asking. Period." Mom's voice quavered, a mixture of shock and desperation. "Amara, please think about family. Think about the love and effort Serena put into planning." "And I've thought about it," I said, voice steady. "And I thought about my own rights, my own space, my own life. You cannot assume my generosity. You cannot assume my consent. You've had years of disregard, and this is the first time I'm asserting myself. It won't happen again." Selena's shoulders slumped slightly, frustration giving way to reluctant comprehension. Dad's gaze softened, a quiet acknowledgement passing between him and me. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line, her hands trembling slightly. I took a slow breath, allowing the moment to settle. "I'm willing to continue our family relationships," I said. "But under one condition: respect for boundaries. You respect my property, my time, my rules. That's non-negotiable. Everything else, love, support, connection, can come after that." Mom exhaled slowly. I understand." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried a sincerity I hadn't heard in years. Dad stepped forward, placing a hand briefly on Selena's shoulder. "We misstepped," he admitted. "We assumed. We thought. We didn't consider your perspective. We'll adapt. We'll respect your space." Selena remained quiet, her eyes downcast. Then finally she spoke, her voice small but genuine. I'm sorry, Amara. I never considered how much it meant to you. I didn't think. I just assumed you'd say yes because you always did." Her words struck a chord. For years, that assumption had been the invisible weight I carried, silently sacrificed for family harmony. But hearing her admit it, even imperfectly, felt like a release. "I accept your apology," I said softly. "But it doesn't erase the years of ignoring my boundaries. Let's start fresh, respectfully. And this time, truly." Selena nodded, the first flicker of humility in her eyes. Mom and Dad exchanged quiet glances, an unspoken truce forming among us. By midday, the corporate retreat was in full swing. Guests arrived, tours were conducted, and my property was used exactly as intended, with professionalism, care, and respect. Through the binoculars, I watched Selena's expression shift slowly. Confusion gave way to awe, and then to a hesitant smile. She was realizing that control, order, and respect weren't attacks. They were protections for both the house and our family relationships. That evening, I walked along the shoreline, feeling the sand beneath my feet, the wind carrying the salty scent of freedom. My phone buzzed with a message from Thomas. I've never seen her act like this before. "You're right, Amara. You did the right thing." A smile curved my lips. It wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about reclaiming my life, my space, and my peace. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. The sunset painted the horizon in brilliant oranges and purples, casting a warm glow over the water. I breathed deeply, feeling the weight of years lift from my shoulders. My house, my sanctuary, my rules, my life were finally mine. And though the family would continue to challenge, question, and test me, I knew one thing with unwavering certainty. I would never again let anyone assume my generosity, my consent, or my life. For the first time in forever, I was the author of my own story.